the total eclipse.
And Dr. Kristen Lippincott from the Greenwich Royal Observatory joins us live. Exciting time for you at the moment.
Very exciting, and one of the things that's, if one may say so, more exciting about this eclipse is that the weather is so good. We did have a bad patch of weather with our eclipse in 1999, so the people who are down there are going to be seeing fabulous things, and we're going to be seeing great things on television as well.
This is a longer eclipse than the usual one, isn't it?
Yes, and they do vary. For example, we only had about a little over 2 minutes, but in some places there's getting as many as 5 minutes. But as you say, in this one, we're just getting around 3.5 minutes.
So we're just edging up towards the edge now, as it were. Tell us what's happening.
Well, what's happening now is the moon is actually moving in front of the sun, and the next thing that you should see is what's known as Bailey's beads, and that is a signal that it's just about to start. And what's happening there is the last rays of the sun are really shining through the mountains and the valleys of the moon. Then what will happen is you'll see what's known as the diamond ring, which is the last big valley and just that last ray of sunlight, and it looks just like a diamond ring with one great stone in it. Now, if you were on the ground in Zambia and you looked over your shoulder, you would see the moon's shadow rushing at you at 1,000 miles an hour, and I can tell you that is very frightening.
What do you think's happening amongst the animal community, as it were, now on the ground there?
Well, the birds are very confused, and they'll all start twittering and start nesting and looking for some place to go to sleep, and they will fall asleep for the totality of the eclipse. Cats, dogs, cows will all be bedding down because they're saying, ooh, it's sunset, we should be asleep. And it happens so quickly that they do get very confused.
It's not dramatic enough for them to die of fright or something like that.
No, I wouldn't think so, though you could get some old granny who was a little bit nervous dying of fright, but I don't think the cats and dogs would.
I mean, historically, it has been a problem, hasn't it, with communities all over the world?
Very much so, and if you think about communities around the world whose whole livelihood depends on the sun, agricultural communities, people who really need the seasons in order to survive, when your best friend, the sun, suddenly disappears, it's very frightening.
OK, we're back with you in a moment.
Now then, let's talk to John Hurst, who's a tourist who's travelled there from England. Hello to you, John. Can you describe to us, first of all, firsthand, what you can see? Hello, John, can you hear me? Well, we seem to have a problem with John Hurst. I think the line has dropped out from Zambia. We'll return to him as soon as we can.
Probably gone to sleep.
Sense of excitement building, like an animal in the room. Yeah. Indeed so. In the meantime, let's talk to Dr. Kristen Lippincott. Moments away, of course. Great concern, as we were hearing, about the risk of damaged eyes and people also unable to afford protective glasses in this part of the world.
It's one of the problems. There's such mythology that some of these glasses aren't good enough that people aren't making them. For example, during the last eclipse, we didn't have enough glasses in England to go around, and people were doing all sorts of silly things, like thinking that sunglasses would help them, or looking through exposed film. You really do need filters or proper glasses until the diamond ring. Of course, once the diamond ring is there, you can take off the glasses and look at the total eclipse. But then, as you know, at the end of the eclipse, the whole thing happens again. You get the diamond ring again, and that's when you have to put your glasses back on.
And there isn't there, great scientific value for scientists in watching and studying an eclipse?
Oh, there is a great deal of scientific value because it's the only time scientists can really look at the corona, the flames around the sun. And they're very interesting because there's a lot of magnetic activity going around in the sun. We're at the peak of the sunspot activity, and so they're going to see a lot of things, sun flares, all sorts of activity there, and every eclipse is unique, so it's very important what they're looking at right now.
And indeed, I understand in 1919 Albert Einstein actually used the total eclipse to prove his theory of relativity, so it's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yes, he could actually see, or the other astronomers could see, that light was bending, therefore the theory of relativity was true.
Well, I think we can now join John Hurst, who, as I said, was a tourist who's travelled to Zambia from England. John, can you describe to us what you can actually see? I think we have a problem with that. Hello, John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
It's not a very clear line. I was just trying to say, can you describe what you can see?
The light is going fast now. It's getting quite cool. We're in the middle of the Zambezi, and things are going very quiet. There are a few more minutes to totality. It's getting rather strange.
Is there a sense of great excitement and anticipation there? there a sense of excitement there?
Yes, there is. Yes, it's not easy to describe this because it's something you have to experience to know. But it's getting rather eerie. The light is getting silvery and temperature's dropping quite noticeably.
And the weather is clear
And
there,
I'm
is
going
it?
back to my camera.
And the weather, I was saying, John, is clear, is it?
Sorry. The weather's perfect. Yes, the weather's absolutely perfect. I'm handing you back now. It's going to be total in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll leave you to that exciting moment to yourself. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us, John.
He clearly wants to enjoy the moment, doesn't
I think
he?
he wants to...
Kristen, you can understand how he's feeling, can't you?
Oh, very much. And one of the things that sadly we can't experience, we'll be able to see the wonderful pictures, but is the effect of the temperature suddenly dropping 20 to 30 degrees, the hairs on your arms stand up, that the light dropping, and it is a very peculiar light. The only time I've ever experienced anything like it is in a very, very fierce thunderstorm, when everything turns kind of greeny gray. And then, as I said, right before totality, you can actually see the moon's shadow racing towards you, sort of like Charlton Heston in, 10 Commandments. It's a really very stunning effect.
You can understand exactly how John Hurst was feeling, though. I mean, he sounded as though he was a part of a very eerie experience.
It is one of those things, and sadly, when we had the eclipse here in 1999, because of the cloud, you really couldn't get the full effect. And I recommend anyone, it's worth a trip to go and see this, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
We heard in the UK that it was travelling at something like 1,630 miles an hour, speeding towards Britain. Is it always the same speed now, speeding across Angola, across Zambia, across Zimbabwe?
It'll be about that speed. Of course, obviously, the visual effect of it depends on where it is on the Earth's bulge. So these things vary a bit, but that's about the speed that it's going, which is one forgets that we're on a rotating planet and that we're actually whizzing through space.
What about, I mean, aircraft, presumably? I know it's a modest 30,000 feet, but do they get a better view?
Well, actually in '99 I was up in a plane, and there's a lot of disadvantages to that, because what happens is, in a plane you can only see sideways, and the eclipse happens above your head. So you don't get as good a view in a plane. Also, you don't get any of those atmospheric effects because you're protected. So you don't get the quick cold, you don't get as much of the eerie light, you don't get, because there's such cloud cover, certainly there was in 1999, you don't get the whole effect of the darkening. So it's better on the ground, and they're so lucky that they've got good weather.
Is there something different about every eclipse?
Every single eclipse is different, and that's primarily because the sun is different. It's always having solar flares and magnetic activity, and it's a very active star. And so every time it's covered, we get to see the corona in a completely different phase. So much new information comes from every new eclipse.
Kristen, I don't know if you can actually see the pictures that we're showing. The next thing we need to look out for is Bailey's beads, is that right? Can you describe that for us and what it actually is?
What Bailey's bead is just as the moon is sliding over the last bit of the sun, it's the last rays of the sun shining through the valleys, the craters of the moon. And you sort of think about that, it's an amazing idea that these are the last rays of the sunset going through the mountains and the valleys of the moon. And what it looks like is really almost like a pearl necklace, and it will be silvery and shimmery and sort of pulsating a little bit.
And it sweeps quite quickly, doesn't it?
This is the thing that's always shocking about an eclipse, is you sit there and you sit there and you sit there, and suddenly it happens. First you get Bailey's beads, then you get the diamond ring, then it goes dark, then you sit there for a while, you look at the corona, then you get the diamond ring, then you get Bailey's beads, then it's over.
That's a lovely picture, though, isn't it? You can, the totality is not far away, is it?
I think we're within a minute or two. And it should, we'll see, you can start to see the beginnings of the beads. As it's starting there, now you're getting bits of beads, and then we should probably in about 30 seconds just get that diamond ring effect. There, we're starting to get it, and then you'll get the whole ring. You can see it starting, the moonshine starting to come around the whole of the moon. The sunshine's coming around the whole of the moon. And there's your diamond ring, and that's your total eclipse.
That is absolutely lovely. Actually, if you're very sensitive, this could be quite alarming, couldn't it?
I would also think that if you didn't know about astronomy, suddenly to see the sun disappear and see all the animals go to sleep and see the light suddenly go this odd silvery greeny color, it could be rather scary. And I think even seasoned astronomers, as earlier you had that live link to the astronomers, he was saying, ooh, this is weird, because it gets under your skin somehow.
It looks like a sort of purple flare effect on the right-hand side. I don't know if that's just the pictures we're getting. What could that be?
It might be solar flare, it might be solar activity, and that's what you really need the astronomers for, to tell you what they're looking for, because they know where the activity should be, because they've been watching the sun for a long time. And sometimes you can see huge plumes of flaming gas come out and do these wonderful arcs. And so that's what they'll be watching for, you know, all the way around, saying, what's the corona doing? Because as you know, it's the hottest and most active part of the sun, spewing out these sort of corona-like fountains from the center of the sun for millions of miles. And even the effect of those fountains come all the way to Earth in magnetic storms.
Do you learn something different every time?
Every single solar eclipse is different. And that's why there's so many astronomers down there right now, is because you can learn so much. What's happening to the sun now, what's happening to the corona right now. One of the things that's very important for this eclipse, first of all, the weather's so good, but secondly, we're in the peak of one of the sunspot cycles. So there's lots and lots of activity going on in the sun, and the only way that you can study these things is by looking at the sun during a total eclipse.
How long are we expecting it to last like this at the moment?
I think we've got it for about 2 minutes. And what will happen is, again, you'll be watching it and you'll think absolutely nothing's happening. But because we're spinning so quickly, it's moving quite quickly, and suddenly what you will get, again, is that diamond ring. You can see from the pictures now, the corona is huge. It's really shining out beautifully now. And that's where all of your astronomers are going to be clicking their cameras away just to catch as much as they can.
When's the next one? You're getting in some enthusiasts here, you know, now.
Yes, I'll have to get my notes, but I think there's another one in Africa in 2002, which is also going to be a very good one. And I think there's a partial one, again in 2002, someplace else, but I don't have it from my notes.
Well, every time it happens, it seems to garner more enthusiasts, doesn't it?
Well, it's one of those things, and I don't know whether it's due to things like Star Trek and Star Wars, but suddenly people are noticing about astronomy. And for example, at this time, Mars is extremely bright in the sky, and we've had lots of interest in people just phoning up and saying, where can I find Mars? How do I know it's Mars? And so there is a lot of interest and a lot of increased knowledge about astronomy. And if you can get it, oh, there's a diamond ring again. Oh, that's
lovely.
really very good.
And already the animals are waking up then, presumably?
Well, they're probably just saying, wait a minute, that was a terribly short
night.
What's happening?
Yes.
And there's the shot, we think, over the Zambezi River. You can see the twilight effect.
If you didn't know better, you'd think it was about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, because just as the sun's starting to give a little bit of light. And now the whole thing will happen very quickly again.
Long way to go for 6 or 7 minutes, isn't it? But nevertheless, worthwhile.
I think it is. I mean, I always wonder that perhaps the Earth's going to tilt off axis, because whenever you have a solar eclipse, all the astronomers rush to that spot.
And there'll be a lot of analysis going on now, presumably, afterwards.
Well, what they'll do is they'll all go home. They'll all spend a lot of time emailing each other, saying, did you see this, did you see that, downloading all their information. The best thing to do is, over the next couple of weeks, buy astronomy magazines, because you'll see some fantastic pictures in the popular astronomy magazines that amateurs have taken, because you can do a lot of really good photography, even with a 35mm camera.
Yes, it's a limited picture, isn't it, of course?
Yes, of course.
What is it exactly, then, that the scientists are trying to find out?
Oh, the totality has come to an end. The moon moves off the other side, and once again, you get the crescent showing of the sun behind it. What scientists will have been looking for was that very bright corona on the outside of the moon. That's the Earth's, I beg your pardon, the sun's outer atmosphere. And the only time you see that outer atmosphere of the sun is when there is a full eclipse and there is totality. Scientists will also have been looking to see if they could see the so-called Bailey's beads. These are the fires that appear to be coming off the side of the moon. In actual fact, what it is, of course, is the moon's uneven surface. You can see the sun dipping in and out of the mountains and the valleys from the moon being lit up by the sun behind. Now, as totality comes to an end, as the moon moves away, so of course light comes back into this game reserve, which we're looking at now from, I believe, Zimbabwe. This will cause some confusion for animals and for birds, because even though totality only lasts for up to the most 2.5, 3 minutes, sometimes it can be a matter of 30 or 40 seconds, depending where you are in the range of totality, even though it's
a very eerie sense of quietness.
Fusion to those animals and birds that take so many messages from night and day. Birds will have gone quiet. They'll now be starting to think there's some form of dawn chorus again. Going to leave you at the moment with the crescent of the sun in the totality of the eclipse. An extraordinary sight. Anyone who saw that in Europe back in 1999 will know full well what Charlene Hunter, Galt and others in Southern Africa will have bbeen enjoying. I had my pinhole camera. I put a piece of paper in it. It was all very exciting. Anyway, you're watching Business International. Up in the next...
Because that's when the damage can start.
Well, more scenes now from the banks of the Zambezi. Everybody enjoying it, carrying their protective glasses with them. Lots of tourists have travelled there, of course, to see it. In Zambia, they think 20,000 visitors are expected, a £15 million profit for the country. It's been declared a national holiday there as well, so everybody having a toast to the first solar eclipse of the new millennium. And a party by the look of it as well.
It's funny, before you see this, you think they must be bonkers to go all the way over there and watch it, but the more you see of it, it is so ethereal, isn't it? It's so impressive. It's obviously worth going to see.
And I think when you're there, you feel it. You feel it on your skin, you see the light, you hear the birds, and whereas you can get wonderful pictures on television, it's really fabulous to be there, and everyone else is in completely this sort of suspended state for those 2.5, 3 minutes.
We're going to leave these pictures shortly, Kristen, but just tell us what happens next.
Well, what will happen next is exactly the reverse of what just happened, is the moon will start to just slowly move away, and it's a bit like a crescent moon, so it'll be thin and then get fatter and fatter and fatter. The light levels will rise, and then it's over until next time.
Well, on that note, thank you very, very much indeed for explaining it to us.
Thank you.
Well, we'll leave these pictures now from Zambia of people enjoying that first total eclipse of the new millennium. If you want to carry on watching our coverage, though, of that eclipse, you can do so on Sky News Active by pressing the red button on your remote control if you're a digital satellite viewer in the United Kingdom. In the meantime, we'll take a short break and come back with all the rest of the day's news. Stay with us here on Sky.